Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news this Sunday night as we talk Baleba, Garnacho, goalkeeper situation, 3-4-3s, sorry. Can Man United raise £100 million? And all your questions as well this Sunday night. The flagship show of the United Stand series, journey, whatever you want to call it. It all started on a Sunday night at 8 o'clock once a week. Welcome very much. Welcome very much. I don't know. This is never going to work. Welcome to the show. Okay, let's fly into the topical stuff. I hope you've had a good day. Interesting day. I think there are some positives to take from this day, even though Man United didn't play. We saw Crystal Palace play a 3-4-3 against Liverpool effectively. We saw a Liverpool team that are champions and are going to spend £500 million show vulnerabilities. I think sometimes we can analyse too harshly, and the reality is we can overblow the competition. I think I saw some positives in that game, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Let's start off with where we're at. Feels like a long time ago that I was live with you at 9 o'clock this morning talking about terms agreed with Baleba. Don't normally get those sort of stories on a Sunday morning. Obviously, it was confirmed while we were live as well, which is always helpful. So terms have been agreed with Baleba. A transfer request has gone in. I mean, that's been reported at lunchtime. I think what you've got to understand with the Baleba situation is, and I don't think some people do understand it, is that terms agreed, transfer request doesn't really necessarily push us to where we need to be, because you're dealing with a football club that is massively respected by its players and is massively respected in the industry. So even though Brighton will play along to a certain point, they're not bothered about Baleba terms agreed. They're not bothered about, yeah, I'd like to go to Man United, a transfer request, because it's not Gyökeres on holiday in Mallorca saying, I'm not playing for this club, I won't go unless you let me go cheap and all that. This is basically Baleba and his agent saying, look, we have agreed terms with Manchester United. We would like to go there. Obviously, we're now in your hands and Manchester United's hands to do the deal. And that deal is going to be the big part of what this is all about. And the understanding is that Brighton aren't going to lower £100 million. So the next stage really is, have Manchester United got that type of money, or are we going to play some silly game here? And it's hard to predict what's going to happen. I think the outcome will be Baleba in a Manchester United shirt. But, I mean, I don't know. Do you have confidence that United, or do you even want Manchester United to play hardball and try and negotiate this down? Because ultimately, there is a precedent set with Caicedo from Brighton to Chelsea. And are we saying that Caicedo's better than Baleba? I don't think we are. I'm not saying that Baleba's better than Caicedo, but I'm not saying that he's, either is better. So I think we have to be walking into this with eyes wide open. But look, maturity wins the race. We saw that with Sesko. We were very calm in the main, most of us. As a community, we certainly were. And I'm very calm about this one. I think that, somebody was in our comments this morning saying when Goldbridge is calm and confident, the deal doesn't happen. And I literally replied, Sesko, where were you last week? Like, we were calm and collected about that and it happened. And I think that as unbelievable as this might be, we are in a position where we are moving gradually through a deal that seemed impossible for most of the summer. Even, I think it was 10 days ago, I was saying, I don't know why people are talking about Baleba. There's no point talking about it. It's pure fantasy, which I think some people mix up with me saying the deal's never going to happen. What I was saying is there's no point talking about fantasy. I could talk about Vinicius Jr. Of course I bloody want Baleba. Of course I want Donnarumma. Of course I want Vinicius Jr. But until Man United actually are in talks with them, it's fantasy talk, isn't it? The minute it becomes reality, you sort of like go, shit, I'll have some of that, thank you, please. And that's where we are at the moment. So look, I'm not saying this isn't going to happen. I think it will. I think some people think it won't happen. But the maturity of the situation is very, very simple. We have spoken to Baleba and his representatives with the permission of Brighton, I might add. Brighton, I don't know whether they'd put that out publicly, but you're tapping a player up if you don't. So Brighton, I think, are in a very good position. I think the way Brighton do things, you couldn't do it if you were Liverpool. Man United wouldn't go for a Liverpool player, but when you're Brighton, you know your place. You know your place in the world. They were a club that got promoted a few years ago. Many people thought they'd get relegated, and they tapped into this thing that nobody else knew about. I've mentioned this story before, very, very quickly, because it helps with the Baleba story. I was down in London doing something with Ben Foster a couple of years ago, and we were having drinks afterwards, and there was a few people there from Arsenal, and there was a guy there who was like part of their scouting network, technical scouting. I forget his name, an American guy. I think he actually played for Arsenal at some point. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, which is very rude of me. And we were talking, and he was basically saying Brighton have changed the game. But the thing is, Brighton are continually changing the game. So even if you start doing what Brighton are doing, and everybody does need to do it, it's going to take a period of time to catch up with Brighton because they've already put it in place. So they are very much admired. And the way Brighton survive is they go, we're not Man City. We're never going to be Man United, and we're never going to be Liverpool. What we are going to be is a club that stays in the Premier League and has a pathway to know its place. Their fans are on board. They must play good football. They must bring hipster managers in. They must bring hipster players in. And the whole point of their survival is to sell those players at a profit and keep doing it. And that's what they do. So when Man United knock on the door for Baleba, Brighton, and their CEO said it, or their sporting director said it, I think it was the CEO a couple of weeks ago, every Brighton player has a price. They don't do what maybe West Ham do and say they're not for sale. They go, well, yeah, you can talk to them, you can speak to their agent, and we have a price. We're thinking about selling him next summer, to be honest, and we'd like to keep him. But if you hit that price now, we don't really need to wait till next summer. If you give us the 100 million now, we don't need to wait till next summer to have it. We'll crack on with it now because we've got a plan in place anyway. So Brighton, some people don't understand why we're in talks with the player and Brighton aren't putting complaints in, because Brighton know we're doing it. They're waiting for us to come to the table and negotiate with them. And if we don't hit their price, they will say to the player, look, we've let you speak to him. You've done your agreement, but they won't pay what you're worth. And you're worth this, not because we're holding you here in a golden handshake or a golden cage. We're holding you here because they won't pay what Caicedo and Chelsea paid. They won't pay the price that you are. So we can't sell you because we believe you're worth that. And the player will probably go, that's really disappointing, but I will stay. And that's why Man United have now got to deliver the hardest bit. They've got to negotiate with Brighton, and that's where we are. Of course, the terms were easy. We spoke about that this morning. Of course, the transfer request has gone in because he's talking to us. But it all comes down to how much we pay now. And I really don't know how this plays out, because Paul Barber's a genius, as Ken Shambles, who's the guy at Brighton. It just depends how United do this. I mean, I was thinking about it just before we went live, and I thought, you know what? We could get Baleba for £60 million. And before you all laugh, we could get Baleba for £60 million, but have add-ons in there for 150. We won't get him for 60. But what I'm saying is, you've just got to get respectful and creative with it. Because I think respect has to run all the way through this. Brighton have respected us and Baleba by letting us have talks. That's respect. We must respect them, and Baleba must respect them by honouring the terms of the agreement, which has to be a fair price. How we achieve this, I mean, look, Sir Jim Radcliffe said last year, we're not paying Mbappe prices anymore. 80, 90 million pounds for a 22-year-old midfielder from Brighton is a lot of money to pay. So I don't know how we do this. I don't believe swap deals happen anymore, so I don't think we're going to see anybody going the other way. We have a good relationship with Brighton. I think it will be financial. I think it will be purely financial. And I just wonder if it will be £80 million with 30 in add-ons, something like that. I think it might be that. I think it might be 80 million with 30 in add-ons, because they want 100. And I just think for United, it might end up being something like that. But look, I'm confident the deal gets done. And I hope that last few minutes sort of explains the situation, because you look around and people are like, what are you talking about, a transfer request? What are you talking about, terms agreed? And they want to bring beef. They want to bring toxicity, because they don't understand how Brighton work. And they don't understand the respect that's running through all of this from the player, from Man United and from Brighton. That doesn't mean he'll end up as a United player. If we don't pay the price, we probably won't get him. But if we do the negotiations correctly, we will get this deal done. The player will come to Man United and Brighton will wish him all the best and take the money. So it's not a normal way of doing transfers, but it's how Brighton work. So yeah, I understand why people don't really understand it, because you don't normally go to Mbermo and do personal terms publicly when you haven't agreed a fee with Brentford, because they might lose their shit. Having said that, Brentford have got similar ways of running to Brighton. So I think the big thing is now how long this next stage is going to take. I mean, look, if we could get it done by Wednesday and get him in for Arsenal, that would be great, because I worry about our midfield. I don't expect that. I don't expect that. We haven't got anybody else in the race at the moment. I do worry about Man City coming in a little bit, but I'm not that worried. But we are negotiating one-on-one, and I believe we haven't actually started negotiating with Brighton yet. Some are saying it might start as early as tomorrow. So it's how long those negotiations take. And this is big negotiations. I mean, like we just said there, Man United might say, we'll give you 60 plus 20 as a start. That's a really low ball. That's going to not please Brighton. So it's all about how we negotiate here. Do we go in at a reasonable price and negotiate? Do we go in at a low price and cause issues? It's all about that. It could take till transfer deadline day. It might get done in a week. We just got to monitor it from this point. Loan with obligation for record fee, says Eamon McAllister. I mean, never say never, but I wouldn't have thought they'll let him go out on loan. And look, let's not forget, Brighton could finish above us. I mean, we've weakened Brentford. They finished above us. We've weakened Wolves. Did they finish above us? Maybe not. I can't remember. We've weakened Newcastle by not getting Sesko. They finished above us. And we get Baleba, who Brighton finished above us, and we weaken them. So they've got to look at those things as well. Hi, Mark. How many Man United games will you be at this year, says David. I haven't even looked at the moment, David. It's very busy. But I definitely want to go to a few, because Seb loved it last year. If you had to take a punt, who scores more league goals next season, Gyökeres or Sesko? Gyökeres. A9. Yeah, it's logical, isn't it? Why? That doesn't mean he's better. Why do you think Man United is hesitant on going for Donnarumma, says Arturo? Well, look, here's an interesting update here. And look, I have never known a summer transfer window like this for a long time. There's been sources I've never heard of all summer with real names. And I'm like, who are you putting stuff out there that I know they've not been told? So it's a really weird summer in that sense. But the goalkeeper one is really interesting, because Fabrizio Romano has basically given an update on the goalkeeper, which is incredible, considering some people have been putting it out there that we're in talks for Donnarumma. Exclusive from somebody I've never heard of. Man United are in talks with Donnarumma. And time again, I say to you, please just listen to David Ornstein or Fabrizio Romano, because they're the only two journalists that United speak to, really. So Fabrizio is saying this about the goalkeeper situation. Man United has not yet decided between a young, low-cost goalkeeper or spending more money on an experienced goalkeeper. It will probably depend on the future of the club's goalkeepers. Now, I think that's a really significant update, because Arturo says, why do you think Man United's hesitant on going for Donnarumma? Well, if you believe what Fabrizio is saying, that is why. So anybody who's out there putting bullshit out saying Man United are in talks with Donnarumma, and we have seen a few people doing it, they're literally talking out their arse. And I respect that. I do respect that. There are a lot of guesses out there. There are a lot of liars out there. Man United gets clicks. So if you start putting that out there, you get a load of attention, because some United fans are just so desperate for information. But I think it's been logical for over a year now where the real news comes from. And we're not in talks with Donnarumma. Because if we were in talks with Donnarumma, Fabrizio Romano is so close to that particular agency, there's no way John from Twitter is getting that over Fabrizio Romano. And if Man United are trying to do it secretly, there's no way Steve from Twitter is getting it ahead of David Ornstein. So, but this is what happens in a summer transfer window. 95%, 99% of Man United transfer stories is pulled out of somebody's arse. The trouble is, people want to believe all of it. I think that's a really interesting update on the goalkeeper. You know my conspiracy theory. I don't know anything about the goalkeeper. All I know is what we got told in March is that Amorim and Wilcox don't want Onana. They like him. He's well liked in the dressing room, but it's not their guy. They want their own goalkeeper. And obviously they've got eyes. They've seen that he is a weakness. Beyond that, I don't know who we're going for. There was talk of Lemens straight after Sesko at the start of the week, but that obviously isn't that accurate because I would go with what Fabrizio's saying, to be honest. We obviously haven't made our mind up. Now, I have a conspiracy theory that Aston Villa's first game against Newcastle on Saturday, lunchtime, live watch along on That's Football, is Martinez suspended? Yes. If the goalkeeper that plays in that game plays well and Villa win, does Martinez play game 2? If Martinez doesn't play game 2, the Man United go back in and say, let's do a deal. I have a belief that that could happen. And that would fit in with what Romano's saying. They haven't made their mind up. Because is there a little play later in the window? Haven't made your mind up could also be, we've got a little plan later on in the window. So that could be something to do with it as well. There could be a late play for Donnarumma. I mean, he is available. You can't deny that. Lemens is a possibility as well. But it's interesting. I was looking at the and drive the show like you are by all means. That's what the 8 o'clock show is all about. But so I don't want to digress on my opinion too much. But I was thinking yesterday, I heard Bayindir doing an interview because he'd saved the penalties. And I actually thought, why are you still here? And I know that's really horrible and that's really blunt, but it's really horrible when you finish 15th. It's really horrible when you use a Europa League final. And Man United's not a charity. So I sort of do look at Bayindir and I sort of go, you can't even get an honour out the team. Like, why are you still here? Why have you not got a move? Like, seriously, why have you not got a move? You've been the number 2 goalkeeper for 2 years, maybe 3 years. You're never going to move an honour out, and everyone wants an honour to go. So why have you not got yourself a move? And were you not looking to be Turkey's number 1? Or are you Turkey's number 1? I don't know. So Baleba needs to go as much as an honour is my point. And he hasn't found a move either yet. So we're playing Arsenal next Sunday. Slow Sports News. We're playing Arsenal next week. But our goalkeeper's going to be a Bayindir or it's going to be an honour. That could be problematic. Dallin Nunes says the Community Shield show Liverpool's strength in the first half and how tough the league is with Palace winning. Realistic expectations needed, says Dallin. I think this is a great comment. I'm going to come back to that in a moment because it's a different topic. I just want to get through some of the transfer stuff. Is 100 million too much for another learner driver, says Castle. I like Baleba. I struggle to play devil's advocate on this because, I mean, look, I'd be caught in 4K on it. It's a bit like Frimpong at Liverpool. I can't say he's shit because I've said so many times over the last few years how good I think he is and how I think he'll tear the Premier League apart. So I can't sit here and go Frimpong shit just because he plays for our rival. Similarly with Baleba, I mean, I literally was doing that Man City game last autumn and he, tore them apart in the second half and I said, this guy's going to be special. I had no idea he would end up at United. I genuinely didn't think he would. So I can play devil's advocate to the point that it's risky to spend £100 million on a 22-year-old from Brighton. But I genuinely think if I saw Liverpool doing it or Man City doing it, I'd be jealous. And let's not forget, Declan Rice went for £100 million from West Ham. Caicedo went from Brighton for £100 million. There's always a bloody big risk. It's one player. If he falls off a cliff, if the big personality is huge. I don't know that. Some people come to Man United, they get the money and they drop off. We've got to do our homework on that for £100 million. So there's always a risk when you spend that much money. But I really do believe the player, like most of you do, is a really big talent. I hope we do what we did with Sesko, present a fair offer that only needed a little adjustment to add-ons and structure. Yes, Glenn, I agree. Hell of a summer for the Hotometer. Big up Marks as Punch Paint. Ayu says, in your point of view, could you explain what the difference between Mainu and Baleba and why Baleba suits us better? Tactical and potential. Thanks. What a great question. What a great question. I forget where it came in from today, and it would probably be unfair of me to discuss it, really, but we will. I saw something today being discussed that Ruben Amorim wants Baleba to be his midfield 2 with Mainu. And I thought, are you just doing that on a Sunday for retweets? I mean, what a load of shit. Like, Bruno Fernandes is going to be our Manchester United midfielder. Like, Mainu can't get in the team. Mainu doesn't start games. He's not in the team at the moment. Mainu and Baleba might be our midfield too in 18 months, in 2 years, but we're not buying Baleba to play with Mainu this season. We're not benching Bruno Fernandes, our captain. Bruno's going to play number 8 this season. That's what's going to happen. It's very, very obvious. So to answer the question, we're not going to play Mainu and Baleba together this season. It'll be Bruno. I would love. I mean, I put a little clip out that my daughter was at a party last night, and she said, "Oh, someone sent me this TikTok of Seb," and Seb's like 8 now. He must have been. He could barely. He called him Bruno. I was like, "Who's the best number 10?" And he went Bruno, and he was about 3 or 4. So it just got. It got me thinking. I would love to see Bruno Fernandes playing as a 10. I really, really would love him to see him playing in one of the 10 positions. I'd love to see Mainu or Agate playing with Baleba. I'd love to see that. I think it would balance us so much. And I would sacrifice an Mbeumo or a Cunha to put Bruno at number 10. I really would. I don't want Bruno not in the team. I just want him as a number 10. But I don't see Baleba coming in and Bruno being dropped so that we can play Mainu and Baleba. As much as I think it could work, I don't think we're going to do that. I think we're bringing Baleba in to play with Bruno. And look, I remember saying this at the start of June. I'll take the money. I'll take the £100 million. I'll put Mainu in the midfield. I'll buy another midfielder, and away we go. But Ruben Amorim refused that. So to think that Ruben Amorim is buying Baleba for £100 million to play him next to Mainu, when he could have raised that £100 million by getting rid of the player that's going to play in Mainu's position, it's going to be Bruno and Baleba in that midfield, obviously. Unless we put Bruno back as a 10. But I can't see why. It doesn't make any sense, does it? I think if we get Baleba, when we get Baleba, it will be Baleba and Bruno and whatever the number 10s are. Because it makes no sense to buy Baleba and play Mainu or Agate with him and then put Bruno as a 10 and bench one of Cunha or Mbeumo, who you've just spent £60 million on. It's just not going to happen. And then you've still, where does Mount go? Into the bloody reserves because there's no space on the bench. It's so obvious what we're going to do. Baleba's going to be the legs in the midfield next to Bruno. For this season, hopefully if Mainu is patient and Bruno does go to Saudi next summer, which is another conspiracy theory we have here, we've spoken about this. We think that there may be a gentleman's agreement between Bruno and the club that he can go to Saudi next June, as long as it's before the end of this financial year, and we log that £80 million in this financial year, which allows us to spend money now. So effectively, the conspiracy theory works like this. You say to Bruno, we don't want you to go. Because Bruno did think about going. You say to Bruno, we don't want you to go. We've got to get back in the Champions League. You're our captain. We're not ready for you to go. Bruno says, well, I'll stay another year, but you've got to be ambitious in the market. And the club go, okay, you go to Saudi next June within this financial year so we can log that money, and then we can spend that money this side of the financial year on players so that you benefit from it in your final year. It's a conspiracy theory, but it might work. And it might be why we're so dead set on giving Mainu a new contract, because this is going to be the transitional year for Mainu to come into the team. I mean, I'm grabbing at more straws there than someone who works at McDonald's, but yeah, hopefully. He's only 20 years of age, exactly, Mainu. Kyle White rallying, says Baleba is ball-carrying midfielder who's going to cover him when he's ball-carrying. The 3 centre-backs, hopefully. I mean, I think we forget that we play 3 centre-backs. I would pay 120 million to Brighton if they sell Baleba along with their recruitment and scouting team. We can save millions in coming years, your say, says Akash. I think they'd want a lot more than that. Amani, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much for getting your badge in. We really appreciate you. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. La Familia says, McAllister was only 35 million. Maybe we average it out with Casado price and they bite, says La Familia. I can't remember why Alexi McAllister was so cheap. Was he coming towards the end of his contract? Did he have a release clause? I can't remember. He did go cheap, though, when you look at what he's gone on to do. Either buy Baleba now or United lose out, says Spin. Awesome show always, says Carl. Did you see the session with the Brighton CEO and the supporters? I didn't, Carl, no. I read some of the comments from it. It was a release clause for McAllister. That's what Young Fury and a few people are saying in the chat, like Tony, who's one of our members. How many done that one from David, done the Donnarumma one. Man United fan for life says, hope the family's well. You too, mate. Also, I think Man United will shock people and finish like 8th to 6th. That's my feeling. Is that shock in a good way or a bad way? Because if we finish 8th to 6th, I won't be that happy, but it'll be enough for Amram to keep his job. I'm going for 5th, mate. I mean, I've sort of given you the spoiler for my Premier League prediction show tomorrow morning, which is dropping at 8 a.m. on That's Football. Watch out for that. But a spoiler, I've put United in at 5th. That's official. I've put Man United in as 5th in my Premier League prediction. Kevin Hamley, welcome to the Members Club. We can say to player, if we pay 100 million, he'll have more pressure. So it's on the player's agent to make Brighton reduce their asking price or have lower fixed price, as DV. Yeah, I think we can do a deal here with a lot of add-ons, achievable add-ons. So if I said to Brighton, look, you can have £80 million, which will give you over 4 years, so £20 million each year. But on top of that, we'll put add-ons in there of 30. And 10 million of that is us getting in the Champions League. The next 10 million of that is him playing 50 Premier League games. And that's 20 million achieved quite easily for them. So, hopefully, we've got to get back in the Champions League, of course. And then the final 10 million could be 100 games for Man United. So they all get achieved. This is how I would construct add-ons. Achievable add-ons that, as Brighton, you're going to go, that's a nice 10 million, 20 million, 30 million coming in the future. I wonder if Brighton would take cash plus a player, says Ross. I don't think they would, Ross, because swap deals are just so difficult. They're so difficult these days. Should we have gone for Baleba instead of Sesko? Well, we're going for both, Ackle. So that wins the prize as the weirdest comment of the evening. Surely with potentially Donnarumma. I think you might be saying, should we have gone for Baleba first? But then I would say we should have gone for a goalkeeper first. The order of things doesn't always make sense to us, but will make sense to the club. Surely with potentially Donnarumma and Baleba coming in 1 game a week, and with what we've already got, surely top 6 is nailed on, says Barry. I mean, I'm not going to say that, but Barry did. Van Dijk, way, Champers, says Silent Hill. Evening, Mark. Hope all is good. If Baleba gets done, do you think Manu has been promised Bruno and Casemiro departure next summer then too? Yeah, well, that's what I mean, Detail Guru. I think that could be a thing. Look, what I will say is that Manu is the slowest build I've ever seen a manager do. Amrim wouldn't go near him for the first 6 months and doesn't look like he's going to go near him again. I've never known a player so talented to be sort of kept in the background for so long, but hopefully there is an end game to it, certainly. Question about the morning show. What would be a 10 transfer window? Because you said if we get Baleba and Donnarumma and get rid of the bomb squad, it's an 8. Yeah, you're not the first person to ask me this, Ronnie, and I don't know what everybody else would describe as a 10 out of 10 window for Manchester United, but we can't achieve it. 10 out of 10 is flawless. 10 out of 10 is perfect. There is no 11 out of 10. There is only 100%. So we can't achieve a 10 out of 10, and I don't think Liverpool have achieved a 10 out of 10. I don't think they can achieve a 10 out of 10. I wouldn't say Liverpool's window, even with Isak, is 10 out of 10 because there's elements that they still haven't sorted. And have they done it quick enough? I think for Manchester United, the pre-season was so important that we needed to get some of these players in earlier to move up to a 9 or a 10. Also, we haven't actually got the goalkeeper yet. We don't know who the goalkeeper's going to be, and that's very important for the first game of the season. So that would be a deduction, maybe 0.5 or 1, whatever. We haven't sold enough players as well. We haven't sold any players yet. So I don't think it's achievable to get a 10. But if you want to know what a 10 out of 10 window for Manchester United would have been for me, it would have been Sesko, Donnarumma, Baleba, Cunha, and Mbeumo all in for the middle of July, so they get a pre-season and we're ready to go against Arsenal. I probably would have... I don't think I'd have been bothered with the sales if we got those 5 in for the middle of July. I'd have trusted us to do the sales, but I suppose that is part of a perfect window as well. But I don't think it was ever achievable to do a 10 or a 9. I think I said that in May. We won't be able to do a 10 or a 9. We're not a club that can do that. Can we do an 8? Because last season it was a 5, or a 6 for some. So I still think a 7 or an 8 is an improvement for Man United. They just got to go for as high as they can get. Shawshank says, one suggestion, Mark. Could you please wait 2 minutes after you get live? Because I always miss the amazing intro you do, even after joining so quickly. Thank you and hope you're doing well. How does that work? So I have to hit the live button and wait for 2 minutes? That doesn't work. You've got some weird problem there that no one else has. Can you make an FPL league? I'm going to look at it tomorrow, Ash. Andy, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. The Community Shield showed... I've done that one, haven't I? Mainu plus Baleba 8s, Bruno plus Cunha 10s, and Burmo right wing back. You've just... What are you going to... Sam, what are you going to do with Ahmad? What are you going to do with bloody Ahmad? Are you mad? Where's Ahmad? You can't do that. You can't do that. I think Bruno... I mean, I just want to say, I and you and me, we're all getting on part of this conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. We've made it up. This whole, we keep Bruno for a year, and then we sell him to Saudi, and then we get Mainu in. This is not Romano or Ornstein. This is literally United Stand community conspiracy. Like, we are making it up. It's not real. So I just want to say, a lot of us, even myself, are going, oh, this will work really well. Baleba comes in now. He learns off Bruno. Mainu learns off Bruno. Bruno goes in a year. We get 80 million back straight away. We put Mainu next to Baleba. Season 2, we're in the Champions League. We cook. It's not real. I mean, we're throwing it out there. So if it does happen, we can go, yes, we are the champions. Yes, we got it right. And I like that. But there's nothing on it. There's nobody saying it, so we will claim it. Oh yeah, we'll claim it. That's our goal. Came off our shin. But it is a conspiracy theory, and it was literally started here last week. It's the same as the Martinez thing. I mean, I just feel that Martinez is suspended for the first game. We have approached Villa this window. If Emery, who doesn't want him, doesn't pick him for the second game, do we go in there and do that? Which I'd be very, look, I know people like Donnarumma, but bloody hell, you know, I'll definitely take Martinez as well. I also did the conspiracy gentleman's agreement a few weeks ago to justify the Sesko signing. It's the only thing I could think of. Well, there you go, Nick. He thought about it first. Nick also, that was Nick P. Nick on his own says, what is going on with Donnarumma and is he joining? And also this year, just lay off a bit towards the players and try and be happier this season. I hope you're talking to the chat, mate, because you're talking to the wrong person if you're telling me to back off, because I back the manager. I don't need to back the players. The players need to deliver, and they will deliver if they do what the manager's told them to do. No one's getting a free ride in a Man United shirt. That's not how it works. There has to be standards. If we get battered 6-0, the players, it'll be open. So you're saying, like the Liverpool game a couple of years ago, we should have backed off and leave them alone? No, that's not how it works. There are standards at this football club, and the players need to realise it quickly. But I am mildly confident that they will. I'm mildly confident that they will, and I'm certainly taking what you're saying about Amorim. And I said, you know, you should really watch the video this afternoon, because I think that's very important. And to summarise, well, you need to watch it all, but in my opinion, and I agree with what Swedish Rumble said completely, and he articulated it far better than I could, our season really is game 10 to 20. I don't think the first 10 games for us are where our season's defined. I think our season is game 10 to 20 in the Premier League, simply because we've got so many players coming in who haven't had a pre-season. Some of them aren't even here yet. It takes time for people to get to know each other. We've also got the top 4 in the first 10 games. So games 10 to 20 will be easier. We'll be more used to each other. And games 10 to 20, the top 6, they're all playing regularly in the Champions League and we're not. So I think games 10 to 20 is where our season really gets defined. And as long as we're in touching distance of 5th on game week 10, and I mean like 5 points, I think we've had a good start to the season. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And we need to silence those gobby people who start going, I'm worried about pre-season. Oh, man, you know, all that shit. It's going to be there. And that's our responsibility, I think, as fans. That's the only thing I would say is this season is a story, not the first 10 games. it's where you are in game 38, not where you are on game 10. Unless we're in the bottom 3 and we're 20 points off the 5th, in which case I have the right to readdress my opinion. Emily Derry says, we're looking like we're building a team, which is positive, but if we want to compete for titles and top 4, we need to build a squad, and that can't be done in one summer, Emily, can it? When you look at Arsenal, it's only this summer where I look at Arteta's got a squad. This is the first time I've looked at that Arsenal team and gone, it's a squad. And they finished second for the last 3 years, so it takes time to do that. Watching Rashford at Barcelona, they won't buy him, says Jide. I mean, I haven't watched Rashford in weeks, months, I don't know. I think we're hoping that we're just going to find this Rashford of a few years ago, but it's not easy. I love the idea we're trying to get Baleba, but I can't help thinking we are rebuilding the team. For me, I would rather get Yulman and Costa from Porto, says Eric. And Suji, who's a member, says, I think we forget we cleared wages like Eriksen, Lindelof and Rashford. When Sancho, Anthony and Garnacho go, maybe Rasmus, it is good for the books. 100%. I wish we'd signed Diamonde, says Victor. I thought he was going to Palace, the Sporting centre-back, but that's not happened yet, has it? Glenn C says, I think people's perception of the window is affected by how we perform in the opening games. Drop points lead to what if in the short term. This is what's terrifying me, Glenn. I think there's going to be too much weight on the first 5 games. And what people don't realise is that we should lose 3 of those. Like, I don't know why people would have a problem with that. I feel like there's so much expectation on these first 5 games, and we legitimately should lose 3 and draw 1. Fulham away is not easy. They were much better than us last year. Arsenal, Chelsea and Man City should beat us. And yet, if we lose 3 and draw 1 and win 1, Amrim out will be rife. They'll be demanding he get sacked on the bloody radio. I'm going into these first 5 games going, if we can get through this and start building, I think we'll have a good season. But Marvin says stop making excuses, Mark. But you've done it again, Marvin. I told you off about this a few months ago. You make a statement and you don't give me anything. And I respect you. You've been here for ages. But what do you mean making excuses? How can I be making excuses when I've just spent 5 minutes justifying why I think games 10 to 20 are more important than the first 10? Are you actually telling me that you think this Man United side that hasn't got a goalkeeper, hasn't got a midfield, is going to go and beat Arsenal, Man City and Chelsea? Because I'm saying they're favourites. I don't think we'll lose to Arsenal, Marvin. But what I'm saying is, are you really telling me it's excuses to say that Arsenal, Man City and Chelsea should beat us? I don't think it is. I think it's a reality. I don't like the reality, but I think it is. But I think there are people like you and others who are expecting things that are unrealistic, in my humble opinion. People might agree with me, they might not. Rashford's constant unconditional selection felt club-driven to build an English academy narrative, not for results, says Marconi. Garnacho Mainu didn't get that. Did Ineos shift things? Call Ruben a shark, please. Okay, Marconi. I feel after the first international break will be a better 11. Yeah, 100% hitting. And don't forget, we have got a Carabao Cup game as well. We've got 4 games before the international break when every other Premier League side that's decent has 3. So we need to use that. I don't want to see rotation. I want to see us using that as an extra game. What do you think is going to happen in the first 3 games? I think we'll draw with Arsenal. I think we'll beat Fulham. And I think we'll beat Burnley. And I think we'll have 7 for 9. We might draw with Fulham as well. But I don't think we lose to Arsenal. I think we should. I think we bloody should. I think they're way better than us. And I'm not ashamed to say that. I just think they are factually better than us, but I don't think we'll lose. What is going on with Donnarumma, and is he joined on that from Nick? Thank you very much to Nick and Nick P. It's turning out to be the best transfer window, says on social. I mean, you're jumping in before you know what's in the pool, but, enjoy the ride. Amrim has big plans for Mainu this season, says the Boff man. Oh, yeah? Been out for dinner with him, have you? Told you that, did he? Tell you anything else? Mainu plus Baleba 8. Bruno and Cunha 10's done that one from Sam. If we get Baleba, do you think we'd be active in January? Raf, I couldn't give a shit about January. All I care about is what we do in the next 3 weeks. We need to get Baleba and we need to get a goalkeeper, and then I'd be very happy with the incomings. What we do in January, I would argue we don't need to do anything in January. I mean, January really should be for desperation. It shouldn't be a plan. And I think you raise a good point, Raf, because I think for the last few years, we've craved activity in January because we didn't do enough in the summer. And I think if we get a goalkeeper and Baleba to go with Sesko, Mbeumo and Cunha, we don't actually need to do anything in January unless we get a major injury crisis. And that's what January should be for. I don't mind us doing business in January if we need to, but I don't mind us not doing business in January if we don't need to. So the trouble is we've always needed to do something in January because we didn't do enough in the summer. But I'd be happy with those 5 signings. If we send Højlund out on loan, do you think we loan in another striker? We only have Sesko and Obi. You know what, Sam? As I said this morning, if we force Rasmus out of the club to bring Calvert-Lewin in, what the fuck are we doing? So I watch that with interest because if Rasmus goes, we do need another striker. And that to me sounds stupid, to loan a striker out to get another striker in. I just think stick with what you got. But they are pushing. The club are pushing. I'd love to boot both Onana and Bayindir and bring in Donnarumma and Lemens. That would be an upgrade for the ages, says Chippy. Whew, yeah, it'd be great. I think we will see rotation at times in the season of Mbeumo as a striker, Bruno as a 10 and Mainu as an 8 when we rest Sesko. Yeah, David, I think that rotation will be great if we're performing well. But remember, when you're only playing one Premier League game a week because there is no Europe, it's hard to rotate if you go to Brentford and lose and then your next game is Everton at home. You can't really rotate. You've got to put your strongest team out because you don't need to rotate for fitness or sharpness. So you only... rotation's really difficult, you know, when you haven't got Champions League football or Europa League football. It's easier to rotate when you're playing Sunday, Thursday than it is when you're playing Sunday, Saturday. There will be the occasional Carabao Cup game pre-Christmas and there'll be the occasional FA Cup game post-Christmas. But you're talking about probably 16 European games that we're not going to have. So rotation will be difficult. To be honest, would spend centre midfield like Wharton and goalkeeper 120 on Baleba. Look, JB, we're going for Baleba. So we're talking in hypotheticals. But if you're saying to me, do I want Baleba and no goalkeeper or Wharton and a goalkeeper? Obviously, I'm going to say I think the goalkeeper is really important. But we are going for Baleba and we are going for a goalkeeper. So let's see what we get from those. I mean, that is known. Do you think we could have just bought Mbeumo, played Bruno in Kuno's position and used the 62.5 for Baleba or a midfielder instead? It woulda, coulda, shoulda. We could have sold Bruno for £100 million, got Baleba in, had Mainu, Baleba, Agate, Collier, Casemiro, and still had enough number 10s with Mount, Xerxes, Cunha, Ahmad and Mbeumo. But we didn't. Like you said, we could have not bought Mbeumo or not bought Cunha and played Bruno as a 10 and still done what I've done there. So, but we've done it this way. And, you know, I hope it's going to work. I'm going to the Arsenal game, unbeaten, live game record on the line. Would have more confidence if we got Baleba, says Alexander. So Alexander has never seen Man United lose in a live game. Let's hope it doesn't start next week. It's always midfield that's imbalanced. McFred, now Bruno, says Curious Watchman. Thank you very much. Look, games are won and lost in the midfield. At any level, they're won and lost in the midfield. Baleba and Mainu midfield is the future, says 1 inch. I mean, look, I watched Seb's team play today, and it was pre-season, so there was a lot of changes going on, and they played really, really well. And it's 7-a-side, so you play a goalkeeper, two defenders, a midfielder that drops in between the two wide players, and a forward. So it's like a 2-1-2-1. And that midfielder sort of drops and runs, you know, in between the lot. And a couple of people did that for us today. And that was where the game, you know, I wouldn't say it was where the game was won and lost, but if you don't have somebody that's combative in that position and can play a pass, then you will lose the game. It feeds everything around it. And, you know, that midfield in any level of football, it's a very difficult game to play if you don't have it. I mean, look, I wanted to talk about this very, very quickly. 1 Inch Wonder says Baleba and Mainu midfield is the future. And Castle Lewin says, does the new signings cause an imbalance in the squad? Where do you see the likes of Mount, Shaw, Mainu, Agate and possibly Ahmad fitting in? So I think this is a great point. Great point. You know, there are a lot of question marks around a lot of players. it's funny to me because on the one hand, the club are trying to move Rasmus out, but on the other hand, you do look at people like Luke Shaw, Agate, Casemiro, and a few others and go, well, where's their game time coming from as well? So I think this is going to be very interesting because I don't think people realise, because we're not used to it, just how few and far between the games are going to be. There's going to be so much time. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to not being in the Champions League, but I think that when I think about last season in general, there was very little time to analyse and discuss Manchester United because you're always playing another game. And I don't think people realise that, you play Arsenal on Sunday, and obviously it's always like this at the start of the season. We play Arsenal on Sunday, we don't play Fulham until the following Sunday. So you've got a good few days to go through different things. I mean, the window's open as well, so that's going to distract. But if you think about in October when the window's closed, you play a game on a Saturday and then your next game's on the following Saturday. There's a lot of time to look at things and go, I don't think this, I don't think that, which we don't normally get. So there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on this team this year. And I think quickly it will become very apparent that we don't have, it's hard to find time for game time for everybody. I mean, if you think about someone like Harry Maguire, if De Ligt starts against Arsenal and we win and he plays well, he'll start against Fulham. And if we win that, he'll start against Burnley. So Maguire might hit the international break without starting a Premier League game. And he's an important player. And the same could happen for Mason Mount. I mean, you might get off the bench for 20 minutes, but because there's no European football, you can go a month without starting a game because there ain't that many games. So if that's going to be like that for a Harry Maguire or a Mason Mount, what's it going to be like for a Casemiro or a Luke Shaw or someone like that? Gives me more confidence knowing that Favell helped negotiate with Caicedo, so he may know how to deal with Brighton, says Tyler. Yeah. Brighton are easy to deal with, Tyler. They're very well respected. They're just not mugs. They're respected because they say, talk to our players. They can go. You just got to hit the price. Given what Sir Jim has done in improving Carrington and the way the transfer window is improving, is your opinion of him changing? You blame him when things go wrong. Keep up the great work, says Ryle. I don't blame Sir Jim Radcliffe exclusively, Ryle. I think that the club is in massive debt. The Glazers are still there. The stadium's being knocked down. And Sir Jim Radcliffe has been a huge factor in that. I don't trust his plan. I think the better plan was to buy all the club and clear the debt. I don't like the plan of doing it with the Glazers. I'm not going to change that because we buy players that we should be buying anyway. But on the other hand, I don't believe in just being overly negative when they're doing the right things. I think Carrington looks fantastic. I think some of the signings are looking really good. It's what ownership of a football club should be. You should never 100% back everything an owner does, and you should never 100% just say everything they're doing is shit. It's called accountability. And running a football club is never easy because it's a results-driven business. So I don't think there'll ever be a point where I'm over the moon with them. I mean, look, we won the Champions League with the Glazers. I didn't say sorry. I didn't see any United fans going sorry. It's there's a lot been done badly in the last 18 months, but there's also some good stuff that's been done in the last few weeks. Let's see what happens over the next few weeks and months because the one thing about being an owner is you're always accountable. You're only as good as your last decision, I suppose. Morphine says, hi, handsome. Don't know who they're talking to. Amram is a football prophet. It's not by chance that he has convinced the hierarchy of another club to banish Sale, buy the players he wants. It says Invincible. Black Wolf says, I'm eating Chinese food. Right random question, but why do you Brits say a Chinese when you reference that food? Well, I don't say that, so I don't know. Well, you're eating Chinese food and you want to know why we call it Chinese? Because it's Chinese food? It's like saying, why do we call an Indian takeaway an Indian? Because it's Indian food. I don't think I've got the point of the question, to be honest. The Community Shield showed Liverpool's strength. Okay, right, I want to talk about this because we're quickly running out of time on this Sunday night, and obviously we've got the after show. Zlazy says, Mainu is supposed to be our crown prince, our golden cow. How is he supposed to develop and turn into the star he was on the way to during the Euros? Well, it's a big season for him as well, Slazy. Do you think Bruno could go in January? No. earther. I don't think so. I think he's got to stay for the whole season. I strongly believe that keeping Bruno was more to do with Amrim keeping the dressing room happy than a financial reason, says Davish. Yeah, and look, if our conspiracy theory on Bruno is true, you would probably all agree that having a transitional period was key. That came out of nowhere with Bruno. I would have done the deal, you would have done the deal, but we don't live the reality, we live the fantasy. Oh, I'll take the 100 million. Sorry, Bruno, we love you to bits, but that 100 million is so important. We don't live the reality that if Bruno goes like that, the morale in the team goes like that. Having a transitional period might be why they did it, but that we're living the conspiracy there as well. You know, we've got to accept that we don't know whether that's going to come happen or not. Love your honesty. The club is trying to force a player who has quality and a desire to stay here. Make it make sense, says King Kid. Sir Alex said attack. Wins you games, wins titles. However, I think midfield wins you everything, says Adnan. And Andre says, I don't think it's a priority now, but I believe we should have a centre-back that's very good on the ball since our midfield plays so advanced. Someone who can advance and is quite fast. Yeah, I mean, I like Yoro, but I think you could do with... I think Martinez is so key to this system as well. Even though he's not an Amrim signing, I think he does work well in it. Robert says, I think we'll use Xerxes and Obi as backup strikers. Okay. And Treple Fight says, I believe we'll steal 1 or 2 of the first 5 games. I wouldn't be surprised if we beat Chelsea or Man City or Arsenal because we've always been a club that can do that. Right, I just wanted to talk about this because my Premier League predictions drops on That's Football tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Make sure you subscribe to That's Football for that. It's always an interesting video and the comments are always good. But I also watched Crystal Palace play Liverpool today. Now, the interesting thing about this is that obviously we live, breathe Manchester United. We get up at 2:30 in the morning to watch games, pre-season or if you're around the world. So we consume Man United and we analyse Man United. And I think sometimes we forget that in that bubble of analytical stuff, we don't necessarily see the clubs that are better than us have problems of their own. Now, I watched Liverpool today. You've had a fantastic window and are the Premier League champions. Defensively, they were dodgy. And you know, we talk about United not being that good against Fiorentina, but Liverpool were really dodgy defensively today. I thought they were really good going forward, and I think they're going to be a very good team. But I don't, and I said this in my match reaction yesterday, I don't read that much into Man United's pre-season. All right, we didn't batter anybody 4-0, and everybody we played were really mid-table clubs at best. But, like, Liverpool drew 2-2 with Palace, and they were defensively not that great. I don't think Liverpool are going to be a bad team. I think they're going to be a very good team. And I think they'll be a very good defensive team. But in pre-season, they've conceded a lot of goals. So I just think the main thing I wanted to say is that pre-season, we can't really read anything into it other than we're not ready for the start of the season. And we've probably got to expect a bit of a roller coaster at the start, which I think we all are. The interesting thing also about that game was that Crystal Palace play a 3-4-3 in a very different way to the way Amrim wants to play it. And I don't want to see Man United doing this. Crystal Palace will have 30% possession. They are definitely a counter-attacking team. But they do play the 3-4-3 in quite an effective way. I think that certainly their right back is so good creatively. Their front three with Mateta, Eze and Sarr are ridiculously efficient. But the thing that really caught my eye is that people talk about the system and say it can't work in the Premier League. I literally spent last season watching most Crystal Palace games in the FA Cup win the FA Cup. And I've just spent 90 minutes this afternoon watching Crystal Palace deserve a draw against Liverpool. Now, their system is very similar to ours in the sense that it's a 3-4-3. It's way more defensive than ours. Like their midfield 2 sit in front of the centre-backs. Their full-backs drop our full-backs, in my opinion, and they have a front 3. What we're trying to do is, we're not playing Wharton and whoever Palace have got in the midfield. We're playing Bruno in there. We're trying to get wingers out wide. We're trying to be more attacking. But don't believe the bullshit of system going into a new season. I think too many low IQ, mainstream media, journalists, analytics, so-called experts are so bloody lazy in analysing Manchester United. The problem with Man United is not the system. Clubs use a 3-4-3. Eddie Howe's done it. Wolves do it. Crystal Palace won the FA Cup doing it. There's nothing wrong with a 3-4-3, and yet we still get preached to that this system won't work in the Premier League. And yet other people play a 3-4-3. The big problem we've got is the personnel. Crystal Palace are a bloody good team because they play what Glasner wants. Newcastle at times are a very good team because they do what Eddie Howe wants. There's nothing wrong with Amrim's system. It's just getting these players to play it. And me and Ricky were sort of having a bit of a WhatsApp conversation during the Liverpool Palace game. And he won't mind me saying this because he'll say it anyway. And what he was basically saying was that he, was watching the Palace game, and basically I was saying, look, it's the patterns of play that always jump out to me. Well, I know how Palace play. I don't want Man United to play like Palace, but I know how they play. They soak up possession, they defend well, and then they transition really quickly and effectively. They're clinical with their finishing, their passing is pinpoint, and they kill teams really quickly with that, fast transition, and they defend so well. And you're watching Palace when you watch Palace. It's fluid. And with Liverpool, obviously, surprise, surprise, it's fluid. But time and time again, I watch Manchester United, and this is a 10-year thing. It's probably longer than 10 years. I never watch Man United and see patterns of play or an identity or fluidity. And that's the thing that we have to get. That's the thing that we've got to get with Ruben Amorim. We've got to get that fluidity. And I think people confuse that with formation and system. It's actually not. It's establishing the style of play. That's all it is. And if we do that and we start looking at our team and knowing who we are and get an identity, then we will start to improve. Gull says it's a manager issue. It can't be a manager issue, mate, because it happened under Mourinho, it happened under Ten Hag, it happened under Ollie, it happened under Rangnick, it happened under Van Gaal. Have we just picked 7 managers and luckily and got it wrong? Or is it actually a dressing room issue and a footballing issue? I'm absolutely convinced that Glasner could not get the best out of this team like he can Palace. I'm absolutely convinced that Slot would struggle with this team as well. Not necessarily this team, but the team from last year. I mean, we don't know anything about this team. Maybe we'll be in the top 4 playing the best football we've ever seen. I don't know, but I wouldn't bet on it. I think it's we've just got to understand and start understanding what the system is as a team, and then the fluidity will come. Because I still see the long diagonal. That's just not part of the plan. I still see these long 50-fucking-yard balls. That's not part of the plan. I was speaking to a Wolves fan today, and they were asking how Cunha's settling in. And I said, we're hitting long balls for him to run onto. And you know as well as I do, he needs the ball into feet. And these are the things that we've got to learn to do quickly. Is there a Donnarumma update, says Tristan? No. No. Well, there is, from Fabrizio, that we haven't made our mind up on what we're doing with the goalkeeper yet until we decide what we're going to do with the goalkeepers that we've got. So there's a lot of bullshit floating around about Donnarumma, but at the moment it's not coming in from anybody of any influence. So let me have a quick look here. Apparently Roma have inquired about Sancho. I forgot about him. Oh, I've just realised Garnacho's on the thumbnail and we've not even spoken about him. Oh, don't tell him. He's absolutely irrelevant. He'll have been watching tonight going, what about me? What about me? Oh, Chelsea are waiting to do a deal with him. They've done personal terms. He wants Chelsea and has wanted them all summer. Blah, fucking blah, blah, blah. At some point, he's going to sign for Chelsea. Who gives a shit? There we go. It's fair to remember we were 15th last season. We'll definitely have issues. Context is key. We need to give Amorim and especially our new players time. I just want progress. Even slow progress, says Patrick. Bang. We need to get a United stand thing going and spread it as gospel. It's so important to our survival. We can enjoy every game as Man United fans, but the first 5 games are ridiculously hard and they don't define our season. The first 10 games are about adjustment, learning, understanding, hanging in there. If we overachieve, great. It's game 10 to 20. That's where our season gets defined. Game 10 to 20, when we've had 10 games with our new players, when everyone else starts playing consistently in Europe, when we've played the top four and they're out the way until the second half of the season, I think game 10 to 20 is what our season's all about. And I tell you what, if Ineos even think about sacking Amrin before game 20, they're fucking idiots. Do you prefer Spider-Man or Batman? Says That's Batman. Bruno's still the best number 10 we have, and the worst of those players who plays 10 you could play in midfield. I can't see it being Amrim's plan, says the Boffman. Look, you might have seen my little clip with Seb from a few years ago about Bruno on my Instagram story. Goldbridge Mark, if you want to give me a follow. I think sometimes in life things happen for a reason. And I saw Seb, 3 or 4 years old, going, Bruno. And I thought, you know what? I've always loved Bruno Fernandes. I still do. I said I'd sell him in the summer because he would have been a sacrificial lamb for 100 million quid. And I stand by that. But I don't like him as a number 8. I really don't like him as a number 8. But as a number 10, I'd pick him every bloody week. It's only because Amrim doesn't want him as a number 10 that we talk about him as a number 8. I'd pick him as a number 10 every bloody game. And I'd give him the captain's armband. And I'd play Mainu or Agate with Baleba. Or I'd play Mainu and Agate while we haven't got Baleba. I want Bruno to play as a number 10. I don't dislike Bruno. He's one of my favourite players. Anybody who's been watching this channel for a long time will know I wouldn't shut up about Bruno for the year before we bought him. I just have given up on him playing as a number 10. And I have problems with him as an 8. That's my problem. But if he was the number 10, I wouldn't shut up. I'd shut up. I'd be like, this is where he needs to play. But I just don't think we're going to use him there. We might have a similar formation to Palace, but we're still a work in progress to the season. Exactly, JB. Thank you, Patrick. LMP says, do you think it's a mistake assuming the defence isn't a problem? Do we need to buy another centre-back? Look, defensively, we don't concede many goals, LMP. Really. We don't concede many goals. But there is still work to do with that 3, because 3, you only need 2, and we've got 3, and one of them needs to start stepping into the midfield. I do like Indian food, Maswala, yes. And online reports that Benfica are ready to bid for Anthony. I forgot about him as well. Right, okay, that's the end of the show. Thank you everyone for watching. Smash a like and subscribe. Really, really appreciate it. We'll do a quick after show. Because I'm watching a good series on TV at the moment. And I know that that's a bit harsh because I never do tell you what I'm watching because some bloody idiot will ruin it. But I'll tell you when I've finished it. But yeah, I've got a good couple of TV series going on at the moment. I don't know if anyone else does this. So I've got a TV series I watch with Mrs. Goldbridge until about 11, and then she falls asleep, and then I put my TV series on. And I ain't talking about that sort of stuff. It's just stuff she wouldn't watch that I like. So, Andor or Breaking Bad or Sons of Anarchy, that sort of stuff. Whereas together we'll watch stuff like Succession and things like that. I used to like Baywatch. I've not watched it for a long time, Sir Eric. Yeah. But yeah, look, I'm excited about this week. As I said, if you have never heard of That's Football, where have you been? That's our general football channel. It's called That's Football. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, our Premier League predictions video drops. Love this. Every year we do it. Top 6, who's getting relegated, who's going to win the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup, the Champions League, everything like that. Golden Boot, Player of the Year. Every year it's done. And then at the end of the season, you react to it. So get involved and make sure you leave your comments so you can react to it as well. So that's coming out tomorrow. Excited about that. And then we're leading into the Premier League as well. So really, really looking forward to this week. And the transfer window's open as well. So yeah, exciting week. And we build towards that Arsenal game, which for an opening week is going to be very good, isn't it, really? But apparently Sesko's doing his first interview tomorrow. I mean, that's interesting for some people. I mean, he's not going to say, I'm addicted to watching EastEnders and I can't stand rain. It'll be all the stuff we've heard, but it's great. Some people love all that stuff, don't you? I just want to see him on the pitch. That's what he's here for. Oh, somebody was messaging me earlier about stuff that was going on X. Look, it's Toxic Sunday. So I basically post and get out. I learnt that a few years ago. Sunday is the day where our souls congregate. So for my mental health, I don't read a lot of replies or stuff. I certainly don't. The worst thing you could do, and a lot of you wouldn't have this problem, is actually go looking at things you tagged in and stuff like that, because yeah, it's just going to damage you. So I don't see any of this, but some people send me stuff and that, and I'm like, at the end of the day, if they're talking about me or the United Stand, they're doing it for a reason. It obviously bothers them, whether it's jealousy, bitterness, or whatever, I don't know. But I'm not interested. I'm not interested in any of that, because it's always a Sunday. I remember everything that's bad that's ever happened in relation to abuse or people gunning for you or anything like that, it's always a Sunday. And the reason it's a Sunday is because Sunday is always the day, and I've experienced this, when I wasn't in happy places, Sunday is always the day. It's the day where the weekend's basically coming towards an end. You might have a bit of a hangover. It's work or school or whatever tomorrow, and it hits you. My life is Monday, and I don't like that. And people just become very, very, very toxic. But let the haters hate. I couldn't give a toss. I couldn't give a toss at all. The only thing it does sort of lead into is that I get really bored. I get really bored doing this. I don't think I probably open up enough, because I don't think people are massively interested. But I get really bored doing this. Not this. I like doing this. I mean, we invented this. Everybody does this now, sits and goes live, and their community is better than this community. And yet this is the original football community. So how does that work? So again, let the haters hate. But I love this. But the external stuff is so fucking boring. I just find it boring. Like, when I used to do the kickoff with Brian and Loz, I used to love doing that, because they were big, we wanted to be big, and you'd go there and do that, and you felt like you were giving the audience what they wanted, crossovers of, big content creators. I find this industry so fucking boring now. Everybody wants to stay in their own lane and grow their own thing. And I just think that's just so boring. I think it's so boring. I think that they're also concerned about everything that they're building. Oh, I couldn't ever do that with him because he might expose me. Well, you probably will get bloody exposed because your opinions are shit. But that's what gets me up in the morning. Not in that way. When I did that stuff with Talk Shit, the only reason I did it is because I actually thought it would be a pathway to getting sat next to that Simon Jordan and actually having a fucking debate. But no, doesn't want to do that. No, he doesn't want to do that. Oh, he's more than happy to sit there pontificating about our football club, but won't actually sit next to someone he calls a bedroom blogger because he's scared. And that's where I find it boring, is just this whole pretend world of, opinion, but they will never put themselves in a position where they want a conversation. So yeah, and I suppose that feeds into what I was talking about as well. I just don't take any notice of the external people on X, because they'd never sit down and have a fucking chat because they're terrified of it. Whether that's an ex-player, a journalist, someone on the radio, someone on the TV, they're terrified of it. And that's why I find it boring when they gob off on a clip or a tweet or something like that. I mean, I used to get indirects all the time from a certain other Man United channel that we haven't spoken about for years, and I don't have a problem with. But they'd always be doing indirects. And I knew people who worked there, and I'd get them to say, stop doing indirects, I'll come to Manchester, I'll sit on your fucking show and let's have a chat. No, they won't do that. And it's boring. Shut up then. Because I thrive on that. I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to do the whole give the audience what I would want if I was watching. I'd love to see me in a debate with another big personality in the industry, whether it be TV, radio, YouTube or anything. They're fucking terrified of it. They're terrified of it. And that's why I find it boring, because there's all this backstabbing and backbiting. But they don't want to do it. So that's why I just stay in my lane now. That's why I just focus on this. That's why I love this, because this is what's real. This is what, is consistent. These are the conversations that matter. This is, it's challenging at times. People come for you, but I love it. I love it. And I do stuff with Robbie. Robbie and me have had a bit of a roller coaster over the years because AFTV and United Stand, we are the two biggest. But, we've had disagreements on stuff. But, we've been in a good place for a long time now. And we just said last year, you know what? I'll do Friday with me, Monday with you. There's no money changing hands. There doesn't need to be. It's just like, let's just do that. And that's how easy it is. That is actually how easy it is. Two of the major founder, I've got huge respect for Robbie. He started the fan content game with the interviews outside the ground, and that's that's enjoyable, but I don't know. I just find it really boring. You just gotta focus on you. Somebody said to me years ago, just focus on the good people, because there's plenty of bad people trying to drag you down, and it's true. It's really true. But you can only control what you can control. I think I was just thinking there. I can't remember a couple of years ago. Was it a couple of years ago when the overlap on YouTube said, "Who should we get on the channel?" And literally, it was nothing to do with us. Loads of people said Mark Goldbridge, and obviously Gary Neville said no. And I remember at the time I was just like, this is really stupid. Like, obviously that's what people want. And I'm sure some people want it because they want Gary to try and put me in my place, and maybe he would have done. And a lot of people wanted it. And I remember a couple of years ago, I was just sort of like, just do it. Like, just do it from the point of view that, I like boxing, I like football, I love it when Liverpool play Man United, I love it when Fury fights Usyk. I want to see the best. I want to see what people want to see. And it bothered me a couple of years ago. I remember some of you were saying, stop talking about Gary, you're really brattled by it. And it did bother me a couple of years ago because I was just frustrated by the fact that it's such an obvious win. It's such an obvious win. You're going to get huge views from it. Even the people that hate me or hate him are going to watch it because they're going to enjoy it. And obviously, the barriers go up. But I learnt a lot from that because you can only control what you can control. And even though it's such an open goal, it's like signing Gyökeres up front or signing Calvert-Lewin. Like, you get Gyökeres, but some people will go for Calvert-Lewin. And that's just the way it is. So, I don't chase those things anymore. I'm not bothered about those things anymore. We've got some really exciting things that we're working on that I think you're all going to really, really enjoy. So you just carry on with what you're doing, don't you? And I think that's a good life lesson, really. You can't control what you can't control. And there's always people out there that are pulling the rug from under you. I remember when we started out, you'd speak to people like The Athletic and a couple of other people, and they'd be like, oh, yeah, we really want to work with you. And then you wouldn't hear anything, and you'd ring them up, and you'd find out that certain other people had spread a load of lies about you, and they believed it. Talk Sport. When I started working with them, I said to them, 4 years ago we were having this conversation. Oh yeah, but such and such said this about you, and it's like, it's such a horrible industry. You know my background. I've worked in law enforcement. I've worked in banking. Nothing's as cutthroat as this industry, showbiz, or what I say, the Poundland showbiz, because this ain't fucking Hollywood. But people are so snidey. A lot of the people that smile at you and do content, they're the ones you've got to worry about. Oh, I'm so humble. I'm everybody's best mate. I'm such a nice guy. Fucking hell, they're the worst. They're the worst people off camera. They are the worst by a long way. At least the people I don't like in this industry, I sort of respect them because at least they are what they are. The ones who like, oh, I'm dead nice, and you hear everyone going, oh, they're such a top guy. They're so nice. They're so humble. They're the fucking worst. They are the worst. They are the worst. And I bet it's like that in Hollywood. I guarantee some of the people in Hollywood I like, some of the actors I like, because they come across as dead. The ones who go on like, Jonathan Ross and that, and they're dead jokey and that. I because I've done this, I go, I bet they are the biggest backstabber in the world. And it's the moody ones where I go, they're probably being real. The person who doesn't look like they want to be there, or they look tired or bored. At least they're showing a real emotion. Yeah, it's interesting. You know what I need to do? I've loved the 8 o'clock shows over the last month, but the after shows, some of them are just a laugh. Some of them are a little bit like this. I definitely need to do like, it doesn't really exist anymore, but I really like it when I get interviewed. I liked it. I did that one with Smithy. I don't know whether any saw it. Really good. The only thing I said to him is I thought your questions were a bit tame. You know, you sort of touched on the Forest fan thing. It's boring. It's not true. Everybody asks it. You spoke about the real name thing. It's boring. There's not really much of a story about it. There's actually some really good stuff you could ask. You know, there's a cracking story about how I nearly even had the documents to sell 40% of the United stand for £30,000. So 40% of the United stand nearly got sold for £30,000 about 7 years ago. Like, it was literally going to happen because I thought it was an amazing deal. I'm not telling you what the United stand's worth now, but that's a true story. See, I don't care about telling stuff. I don't care about telling the truth because it doesn't damage anybody, the truth. It's the truth. There is so much stuff I would sit and say about people, not in a bad way, because it's the truth. But I love doing interviews. I love it. And I think it's because I spend so much time talking and answering questions and stuff. But I actually like it when people, I'd love to be interviewed by somebody really good. Yeah, and this is the reason I tell you that is I'm not taking the piss out of the person who was going to buy it, because they probably wouldn't be very happy when I tell it, and I'd run it by them before I tell it. But I'd say, actually, it makes you look really good, and it makes me look a fucking idiot. I mean, I can't tell you how happy I was to sign that deal, and the only reason it didn't get signed is because that person's lawyer kept putting little bits in. If they hadn't put those bits in, whilst, I mean, this went on for about 12 months. And in that 12 months, we grew quite a bit. And I realized that that price was stupid. And I wanted a little bit more. And then I was like, but if we grow again, and then I just went, I don't want to do the deal anymore. So it's crazy. And it would have been the worst thing that could have happened, because to lose 40% of control 7 years ago would have been horrific, because we needed creative control. And it would have been a nightmare. But I thought it was the best thing in the world, and it was just pure luck, you know. So we're not, you know, with me when I'm talking, I'll be honest. I ain't got all the answers. Nobody has. People make mistakes, and you get a bit lucky. It would have been a very different story, and there's probably all our haters going, "Why didn't he fucking sign the deal?" And I'm like, "Thank God I didn't sign the deal." But you know, it is what it is. Everything happens for a reason. Mark on Piers Morgan Uncensored coming soon. I'd love to do something like that, but I don't think. I mean, I'm not going to get on that. I'm not an idiot. Thanks everyone for watching. I better end the show. Take care. Big week ahead. Really looking forward to it. Yeah, it's just exciting that football's coming back, isn't it? But I genuinely do think you should start. Look, Premier League predictions comes out at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. But I genuinely do think you should start thinking about things like what's going to make you start losing your shit. And I don't think any United fan should be losing their shit in the first 10 games. I think 20 games, you've got to look at that. That's what I'm looking at. It's going to be difficult. I'm not saying I'm not going to be angry if we lose games, but the bigger picture is really important. And we can scrutinise, you know, poor performance and poor tactics, but to get to Amrim out, that's silly. You know, we've got to be patient in relation to that, I believe. Thank you for everybody. Please do subscribe to the channel. Smash a like on the video. You are the best. Stay safe, and I'll speak to you on the 10 o'clock show tomorrow morning. Take care.